up in the chapel. Saturday morning, we would like to get people up and see if they'll catch breakfast by 9 or 9:30. We usually gather for morning prayer and then some sort of morning presentation, some free time outdoors, lunch. Normally there's a community project sometime in the afternoon, very often after lunch, where we'd move firewood or go out and drop a tree that needs to be cleared off a trail, or do some pruning, or depending upon the season, do some sort of work for a half hour, 45 minutes together as sort of a community building activity. Late Saturday afternoon, we gather for Eucharist in the chapel. We celebrate Mass almost every day up there. Normally that would be part of our day. And so one of us would lead the Eucharist, and students again participate by choosing music and entering into the dialogue homily, leading some of the prayers, offering the gifts, and again cooking supper together on a Saturday night. Some free time and entering into some discussion on Saturday evening, closing with night prayer. And then Sunday morning, people wake up and get ready to go as they want to, and we have liturgy at 11 o'clock every Sunday morning. The 11 o'clock liturgy on Sunday is a great gathering of people that travel sometimes from well over an hour away to join us. Even in the middle of the winter, the chapel sometimes had 60 to 70 people in it. And again, they're young and old, and the students then have a chance to join in with them for usual Sunday liturgy, which is fairly unusual. Our homilies are always dialogue homilies at the mountain, and people are really very good about that. It doesn't break into just a discussion, but it really is a faith-sharing time. And after the liturgy, there's always on Sunday a brunch dish to pass following, and people sit around and enjoy each other's company and do a lot of talking. It's important to say that even though I just gave you a basic schedule, the theme changes every weekend and might even shift a good deal within a weekend, because as I mentioned in the beginning, we try to hear what people's expectations are and then to go with what their needs might be and respond to those. And also, we've been doing a variety of formats for overnights or weekends too, so that we might respond to some new ideas that students would bring forward about how to shape an overnight, or again to respond to a group's particular needs, and because of that have a bit of a different schedule or different sort of input. One of the greatest settings for getting to know people and enjoying company is around eating. Why we all need to eat. Religion, better said, the spiritual experience is best known in the regular, in what we would normally call the ordinary. And said frequently enough, not only by myself, the ordinary is extraordinary. We just don't sit with the ordinary and appreciate it. Most ordinary thing we do together is share a meal. But it's the most special thing you can do. Meals are all sacred in all traditions and heritages. To share a meal is to do something sacred, but it's not, first off, to claim it to any religious tradition, but go to any great religious tradition, and their meals, their best meals, are ritualized. Why? Because it's a sacred moment. Why? Because we're hungry, and we know God through the goodness of our earth and the goodness of each other, and so it's a holy moment, and meals are very important. It's also a time when you and I are going to talk. Now, if we said, let's sit down and have a group discussion, we'd begin with some discomfort, and it'd take us a while. Well, what does he want me to talk about? And, you get into organizing a theme. You sit down to a table, you don't say, well, what are we going to talk about tonight? You talk. And if you're comforted by the preparation, you're enjoying what you're eating, you like the people across the table from you, you start talking, and you'll get into all sorts of things, and no one said, let's have a group discussion. So there's a sacredness about it, but also there's a quality of community building. It's just so natural to a meal. So we wanted to do a chapel that would ask everybody to help build it. And even our construction plan meant that. In other words, it was important that the building was put up with the help of people who are going to use it, and that it would not be an anonymous structure. So we know who built it. We know who planed the wood that's up there. We know who put the paint on the walls. And that's a wonderful part of a worship space. In a world where a lot of people are anonymous, it was important for us, again, not to do that, to make it a place where we would know each other's name. And the chapel reflects that. Its formation inside invites you and me to look at each other if we wish during Eucharist. We gather around the altar, so there's a chance to really be in communion with each other through our faces and our eyes. You can hear voices. We intentionally used materials that would allow for a good acoustical quality in there. We hoped for that, and it turned out to be the case, so that you wouldn't have to raise your voice in order to be heard, so that during a dialogue homily you could speak it. All that substantiates an experience of community. The timbers, all that wood, the overhead wood, the oak, is from nearby, but it's not from the land. But all the rest of the wood is. The flooring is maple from the land. The wainscoting around the wall wood is from the land. It was all wood cut by a friend of ours, Lucho Skandar, with the help of Forrester, and then planed and rough cut, taken off, and then brought back on and placed in by Lucho and his workmen when the chapel was being finished. So there's a sense of integrity and authenticity about the chapel too, both by way of materials and who did the building. So it's very much grounded and rooted in the place. There were trees that grew under the sun that still passes over there, the rain that fell on that hill, and all that's very important to the truthfulness of it.
We danced in the chapel. You could play music and stuff. It's just, I don't know. And we slept there, and we hung out basically in the chapel the whole day, because it doesn't really look like a chapel, but it is one. I don't know. I had fun.
The only adjective I keep thinking of is unique about that Mass because of the different setting in the new chapel that was just built, where everyone sits and faces each other, and it's just a great bonding feeling. And you not only have the normal Mass, but you have activities where everyone talks about some things that's going on in their lives, some good things or even some pressures and some negative things. And it just makes everyone feel really close and really bonded, and something you don't forget when you leave the mountain and you come back to campus.
We don't want to become a lot bigger. We've really determined a size that we want to stay with so that it stays familial, small, so that we don't have to get a staff in to do the cooking and cleaning, so that it's something the core community and the guests will do. That's an important part of our life, because too many, prejudicial statement, but too many religious places, and we feel a lot of retreat places offer that as an experience, and we're really wanting rather to offer an experience that asks you and me to take responsibility for where we are. The mountain, as we perceive it, is something that we want to keep small enough, so that people will know each other's names and will experience a fair amount of intimacy, even if they're not speaking. Even if it's only in solitude, you don't feel overrun with lots of people. So the house we want to build is not going to be real large, and it's not going to be institutional. It will have to be probably double the size of what we have now to accommodate other needs that will go into it, and meet needs that we don't have right now, even just like dry storage of food, maybe cold storage of food. Why? Because we'd like to live more economically than we do. We do have our own garden. We'd like to be able to process food and store it through the winter. That would make it economically sounder, be a little bit more self-sufficient in some senses, but there's a grace about growing your food and eating it. And we do that maybe 3-4 months a year, but to be able to do that means that we need a house that we can store things in to some degree. That's not a lot of space, but that's more than what we have right now. We don't have any storage space as we exist right now. We don't have adequate space for the friars who live there. We're not looking for a lot more. We want to live simply among ourselves. We want to live adjacent and open to guests in the house, so we don't want a friar's wing sort of thing. We're not seeing ourselves breaking out from other people, but if you look at the rooms, they're just not adequate really for good adult living or living for young people. At the mountain, there's no business to be done, and so we have a chance to enter into community with each other, and I think we see things differently because of that.
There's a lot of healing that you see happening up here. People come up here because it's quiet, because there's a sense of peace, and most people come up because they're hurting about something or other. Sometimes they find a beginning of healing, sometimes they find it, sometimes it just takes a lot longer. But there's just a tremendous Spirit of the Lord working around this place, and not that we're responsible for it. It just happens. You bring people out into the woods and extend a welcome environment, and great things happen.
It's just such a great feeling of just getting away from everything and really coming to peace with yourself. And it was a great time for us to focus on some of our goals, not only as a staff, but as people here at Bonaventure.
It's very peaceful, and I felt like it's something I definitely want to do again. It was like a totally different view on religion, because it's up there for the point of religion to an extent, basically. And it was like a retreat, like exactly what it's supposed to be. It was, you didn't feel like you were in church or anything. It was like a totally different atmosphere. It was fun, it made religion fun.
And up there, we are like a family, and up there we're a lot closer, but we can spend a lot more time together and get a lot closer and talk more.
It's never going to be used enough. I don't feel that, or maybe we need more of the mountain, more experiences like it. If everybody experienced it, we'd all be a more loving, humanistic society. How do we get more people involved? Every time I go up, I take a new person, or try to take a new person, or take someone who doesn't have the opportunity to get up there. So I reach out to them. I don't maybe get to get as much out of the mountain, but one more person is at least experience it, and then that way they can use it when they need to.